Grace and peace, everybody. Just got off of work a little bit early today. I want to pick up my baby girl, Zariah. And you all know Zariah. I have a picture of her on my community post, my 5-year-old daughter. And thank you all once again for your prayers. She does ABA therapy every day of the week, and for her autism. And just thank you for me and my family again for your prayers for her growth and development. And I wanted to hop on here and do the video I mentioned I was going to do, which is about attending church. Me and my family attend church, and I just wanted to answer the question, are there any solid local churches that exist on this planet today? Church buildings or a place where believers gather together in person. Do solid churches exist today? And by solid, I mean churches that stand on salvation by grace through faith alone, with no front-loaded works or back-loaded works woven into their gospel presentation. And the answer to that is yes. Me and my family go to one, and what I want to do is I want to provide some practical steps for you to take, steps that I actually took for my family when we were looking for a local church with a clear gospel message. And before I get into those steps, I just want to say I don't want anyone to take this video the wrong way. Like I'm saying, I don't want you to get the impression that I'm saying online fellowship is a bad thing, or online preaching and teaching is a bad thing. It's obviously not. The Lord's hand is in the midst of all of that too. But what I want to do is just highlight the importance of in-person fellowship with other brothers and sisters in the Lord, and how it's healthy and biblical and refreshing. And I got a comment a few weeks ago from another believer just saying how they desired to fellowship with other believers, but they said every Christian, they put Christian in quotes, every Christian that they come in contact with has some type of lordship salvation message. And so I understand a lot of believers desire in-person fellowship, but it can be very rare to actually find a place that has a clear gospel message without works involved in salvation in their gospel presentation. I understand it can be rare. I understand that people are going to watch this and say, well, nope, there's just nothing by me. It's all garbage by me in terms of the local churches in my area. All of them teach works-based salvation. They're all Catholic churches, or they're all, fill in the blank. I get it. I honestly get it. It can be rare. But what I want to do is encourage some of you who see the importance of it and have that desire. I want to give you some practical steps to take if you haven't already. And I want to provide that for you, the steps that I took. And I understand that a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to attending church. And whether it's because you attended a church that had a false gospel, or you attended a church that just had some weird, twisted doctrine, I just don't want people to completely throw out the idea of going to a local church if there is a local church near you that has a clear gospel message. So what I did for my family was I literally Googled churches within a 30 to 45 minute radius of where we lived. And I purposefully avoided certain denominations, obviously. Like, I wasn't looking for a Catholic church. I wasn't looking for a Lutheran church. I wasn't looking for a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall or a Pentecostal church. And I weeded those specific denominations and other ones out because the track record shows that they teach a works-based gospel and or a turn or burn salvation message, or you got to get water baptized to get to heaven message. Fill in the blank on that. The track record shows that the gospel is absent from a lot of those places. And when I say Pentecostal, I mentioned Pentecostal churches avoided that whole scene. Charismatic, everything is hyper focused on gifts and the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The good news is usually absent or way in the back burner, and everything is like emotional concert and very experience based, and the jumping up and down and all that. You can keep that, but so I googled churches, and when I came across ones that were like, okay, let me see what that's about, I would call the number. I literally would call the number that was associated with that church and ask to speak to an assistant pastor or a pastor. And I would just straight up ask them, hey, what do you believe concerning how a person gets to heaven? I would ask, do you believe that good works are the evidence of a person's salvation? And that's an important question to ask also, because that reveals if a congregation is backloading works into the gospel. The whole, oh yeah, we're saved by grace through faith alone, but if you're not doing good works, you're probably not saved. That whole thing. So I would ask that and see where they stood on that. I did 2 videos in the past, one titled Dear Fruit Inspector that dealt with that, and another one titled What is the Real Evidence of Salvation? So you can go check those out if you haven't. But I would ask that question. I would pretty much hit every angle concerning the gospel that I could, just to see how firm they were, because that is the foundation. That is the foundation, Jesus Christ and his finished work, of any local church or home church assembling together of believers. If the gospel isn't there and being taught, what are we talking about? It just shouldn't be a source of spiritual food and teaching if the gospel is absent. So I dug in there with literally asked those questions. I would ask, hey, do you believe that Jesus is God, the creator of all things, and that he came in the flesh? I would ask that. And if everything checked out in terms of the simple, straightforward questions that I asked, then we would go check it out. And if everything didn't check out, if those questions were answered with unbiblical answers, then I'd be like, hey, thank you for your time. I appreciate the conversation. And in my mind, I'm like, yep, guess we won't be going there. But the beautiful thing about that is if the conversation went that way, it was still a blessing because seeds were planted. And that pastor or that assistant pastor still got to hear the good news. And hopefully those seeds got watered down the line sometime. So it was a win-win, really. It was a good thing. But lo and behold, 5 years later from me taking these steps, we've been at the church we're at now for roughly 5 years. Solid, unadulterated gospel, unleavened gospel, no back-loading works, no front-loading works, solid. And if you haven't taken those practical steps and you have that desire and you see the importance of in-person fellowship, I would just simply encourage you to do that. In-person fellowship with other brothers and sisters we see it in the Bible, we see it biblically. Paul himself was writing letters to believers who were geographically in the same location together as a group. He would write them letters with instruction, encouragement, reproof when needed. We see structure and order with the different offices when it comes to a local church. 1st and 2nd Timothy, for example, there's no way around that. We see different offices and the structure and order that Paul had in mind and that he instructed Timothy in. And it's completely different than what you see online in terms of the order and the structure. YouTube can pretty much be like a wild church with no pastor. Everything is kind of up in the air. If you disagree with what somebody's saying, you can, there's 300 other churches or channels for you to go to and check out, and you can just unsubscribe and keep it moving. And a lot of disunity, and it can get real funky when it comes to online stuff. But in-person fellowship, what are some of the benefits also? Man, just the laughter, the joy, the community, serving the Lord together, sharing the gospel together. Some of the different ministries at my church, for example, we have a drug addiction recovery program every Friday night at 7. It's free. You just show up. And we approach drug addiction from a biblical standpoint and focus mainly, first and foremost, on the gospel, getting that person saved, and then building them up in different principles on how to stay clean. And it's a beautiful thing. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's a ministry that we have at our church that exists in a lot of other churches too, with solid gospels. But man, so many people have gotten saved and have stayed clean just because that ministry was available to them. That's a huge blessing. Some other things, just the iron sharpening iron aspect of you being face to face with other brothers, Christian men, for you to fellowship with, that know your family and your kids and you know theirs. Same thing with women, and just having that fellowship with sisters face to face. Go getting coffee and having coffee together and knowing each other's family and having that close bond in person is beneficial. It's healthy. It's refreshing. Looking for a spouse. If you're not married and you desire to have a husband or a wife, that's another good thing. Not saying like you go there just for that, but being able to physically see that person, see how they walk and talk, is a blessing. Versus like, I don't know what you folks do today. I don't know if it's like Christian Mingle or online Christian dating websites. I don't know much about that. And I'm sure it works out more times than I think it does. But in person versus your phone screen or your computer is a different experience. And I think you can get to know a person a lot better than just like a profile or FaceTime or just, staring at a screen. It can be different, but that's another thing. marriage, families. It's the different ministries sharing the gospel together, handing out good Bible tracts together. These are all blessings and benefits. And again, I understand a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to attending church due to going to churches in the past that had a false gospel or had some weird doctrine mixed in there, or whatever the case was. But my encouragement is not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, in the sense that you completely shut off the idea of attending a local church, especially if they have a clear and sound gospel when it comes to how a person gets to heaven. And I understand there's things outside of salvation that, other doctrines that people disagree with, and they're like, well, yeah, they got a clear gospel, but they say XYZ, and there's other doctrines that you may disagree with where you're like, oh, I can't go there because of this, even though, yeah, they're brothers and sisters and they're saved and they teach a clear gospel and get the gospel out there, but I disagree with this, therefore I'm not going. I would say just be careful with that and wise with that, because I had that mindset a lot back in the day, and it can become a thing to where it's like you don't fellowship with other believers and you look down at other believers because they don't agree with what your idea or with what you see and how you see things. And if everything's just not perfect and on point doctrinally, then nope, I can't fellowship with these brothers and sisters or listen to that pastor because they're right here, but they're wrong here. We're all human beings. Everybody has some flaws in their doctrine. Like, sometimes you just gotta suck it up. And I understand there's extreme errors sometimes that are just like, no, we can't suck it up. This is detrimental to a person. I get that. But when it comes to some of the smaller things, don't be so nitpicky. Toughen up and look at the bigger picture is what I would say. So I am a strong proponent of in-person fellowship at a local church or a house or something like that. I support it. I believe in it. And it's good. It's good. So if you haven't, I would encourage you to take some of those steps. See what's out there. See what's around if you haven't already. And I hope this video was a blessing in some way, shape, or form to those listening today. Thanks for tuning in. Grace and peace.